Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to do my very first deck deep dive on the USMC and Spec Ops. This deck, when I first played it, I felt like it literally had every tool that you needed to accomplish a urban fight and win. I was super excited, and then I spent about the next 5 to 6 games kind of putting it through its paces. And after experimenting with the different types of infantry that you have, the helicopters, the planes, I was able to kind of come up with a play style or a role that this deck really fits. Initially, I was playing it as a ground role, which means setting up and establishing a front line, being able to hold and withstand heavy armored pushes, and then leaving the support and air roles to someone else on my team. After a few games, though, I really realized that this deck is far more suited as an air role, so you are the main air player on your team, and then kind of splitting that ground role with someone else. So if anything, you can think about it as a hybrid air and ground role with, again, plenty of capability to do well in the city. But I want to start the deck from scratch and kind of share my thoughts and how I got to this point where I'm looking at this deck and I'm coming up with this analysis. So let's start from scratch. Now, in any deck deep dive, I think it's very important to get an overview look at what the specializations have to offer just by looking at the points that they give you, right? So when you look at USMC, you can see that it's kind of a jack of all trades. It gives you an even spread of points across Recon, infantry, vehicles, support, helicopters, and aircraft. You could say it slightly leans towards infantry, vehicles, and aircraft because you're getting more points in that category. Just to kind of show conversely, you go to Spec Ops, and this is Recon, infantry, helicopters, and aircraft. No vehicles, no support. So right there, this should tell you that this deck is designed more to be a hybrid. This spec, I mean, by itself, is designed to be more hybrid because it's not giving you any vehicles, which means it's going to kind of lack on the vehicle side or on that really aggressive pushing power side. So it's not going to do well in open spaces. It's not going to do well in fields because you really need the vehicles to make that aggressive push. And this is not really suited to be a support deck because you don't have any long range AA, you don't have any arty, and you're generally lacking in also ground supply trucks. So keep that in mind when you're putting these decks together. So let's go ahead and start. That's kind of my right off the gate overview. Obviously, this combo, this deck, has a very strong arty tab. I initially looked at Green Beret Punishers and thought, man, this unit has some serious potential, and I initially brought them with the Flash Launcher. Now, I got to admit, I do need to put a little more time in the Flash Launcher, but before we talk into the amount of output damage that this unit does, I want to first look at the overview of the unit, right? What are you paying for when you spend 80 points to get these guys? Well, it's a 4-man team, right? Every infantry unit in this game has 5 health. So it's a 4-man team, 20 health. Fairly average optics for a recon team, and 3 stealth. Now, this is probably their most important stat because 3 stealth is the highest stealth rating in the game. So when they are sneaking around somewhere, they will be stealthy. They will most likely always get the drop on whoever they encounter. Now, this Punisher loadout, as you can see, it's a solid mid-range loadout, and would be best as a support loadout. So basically, you kind of become a force multiplier if you have infantry on the field, any other infantry out in front, pushing or assaulting an objective. You can have these guys safely behind them and dealing effective damage at range, and they probably won't even get spotted. which is nice. So if you change to the flash loadout, they go up to 100, but now they gain a much closer range loadout, and now they have this flash launcher. Good thing is, it has 12 rounds, so you're not going to run out very quickly. And the key point here is that when you click on this flash launcher, ignore cover, which is buildings, 100%. So 100% of this damage is dealt to a unit in a building, which is really kind of trying to tell you what is this special kit really designed to do. And I will show some footage. I actually did assault a building that had enemy infantry in it with them, but honestly I wasn't blown away by the amount of damage that they did. If they shoot at an enemy unit that's just out in the open, it creates a patch of fire under them, which, you know, does panic the enemy infantry, does make them want to run. But now, let's go back to that 4-unit status I was talking about. So this is where you have to be really careful with this unit, because although it has 10 armor, only having 4 models, this means if anything sees this unit and starts really focus firing them, they are going to take a lot of damage and die quite quickly. So, with all that being said, I currently don't have a place for them in my deck, and I'll get back to that, but I know you can also put the sniper rifles on them. They cost 125, which is a lot, and they are again, a fairly mid to long range unit. The problem is, if you keep them very far away so they don't get spotted, then you're really only shooting 1 or 2 of the guns, and you can just bring a different sniper unit, the Ranger Sniper, to kind of accomplish the same goal. So I don't include them. Now, let's talk the rest of the deck. So when I put this Recon deck together, I try to look at every single unit and I say, what are you going to do that is so specific to you that this deck can't live without you? So one of the things that I like to prioritize as an air Recon deck is getting a Recon unit under the enemy plane spawn. If you can get some kind of Recon under where their jets fly in and out of the map, then you can spot their jets right away as they come in. I choose to do that with either Force Recon, right, and you can make them very cheap, 60 cost, and just fly them back there, or you can do that with Pararescue. They're also 60, and if you look at it, they have a very similar stat pool: 10 armor, 6 units, 10 armor, 6 units, 2.5 stealth, 2.5 stealth. So it's really up to you on which one you want to bring to kind of do that. But let's go back to my core deck building philosophy of what are my main units. So my main units that I use for this deck are Ranger Snipers. I think these guys are absolutely amazing. I have plenty of footage of these units hiding in buildings, sniping guys, again, because their ranges are a little more even at 5, 6, and 900 meters. I can leave them suppressed. They also have 3 stealth, so they are rarely ever getting spotted, and they are doing a ton of damage. These 2 of these guys in a building can, like, 1v1 versus a multitude of enemies running at them and never be seen, and those enemies just die, and the other player doesn't even know where it's coming from. Unsuppressed weapons, as they shoot, if the enemy isn't spotting you, they're going to leave a tracer from where those rounds are coming from. Suppressed weapons, that tracer is almost invisible, so it is, again, very hard for an enemy player to see where his units are getting shot from, and that is why I always try to have all 4 of my Ranger Snipers on the map, on the flanks, in a fire support position to my other infantry. So for that reason, I don't bring the Scout Sniper, I just bring the Ranger Sniper. I bring both of the Sentinels. I think they're very important and quite critical to the deck. And I also do bring Pararescue. I actually do make them special tactics teams. because again, mid-range loadout, very good to add fire support for the rest of your infantry, and then of course they have a Stinger, which is fantastic against enemy counter pushes with helicopters. I like the Little Bird, so I do couple most of my infantry with the Little Bird. This way I just kind of use the points from Recon, and I give these guys the ability to come in very quickly in a Little Bird. So I'm going to add Force Recon. I don't use either of these, and we'll add 2 of them, so I can bring them back to camp and spawn. So for now, those are my main units that I'm going to use, and I'm going to leave it there. Let's look now at the infantry tab. This is where the light bulb came on for me as I was doing a deck build. I thought, well, you have the best of both worlds. I have Delta Force, which if you've played against them, you know just how impressive these guys are when they get into a CQC environment. No joke, I've had these guys 1v1 3 to 4 infantry squads. I've had them 1v1 themselves when they go up against another squad of Delta Force, but if that squad has the standoff package and they are in close quarters combat with each other, let's say in a forest, the close quarters kit trades 3 to 1 against them, and I have footage of that. I should be able to show that to you. So I bring all 3 of those, and I do actually bring the LMTV Warpig. This is a great transport truck. It has, 2 machine guns on it. Sure, it's light skin. It doesn't have any armor. But if I don't feel comfortable or confident or safe to bring in this team with a helicopter transport, I do have 2 of these as a backup. So the next thing, right, is now that I have my Delta Force kitted out for a CQC, I bring my Marine Raiders with the standoff package. Now, this was part of the Eureka moment, right? So the standoff, I said, well, you can have Marine Raiders, which arguably, depends on who you ask, arguably this is the best infantry unit in the game. So I thought, well, I have the best CQC infantry unit in the game, and I have the best long-range or mid-range infantry unit in the game. Yeah, so this is great. Why, what do I have to complain about? So the AAVP 7A1, I love this as a fire support just behind the infantry. Another really nice thing about it is if your infantry is getting hit and they're about to die, you can try to have the AAVP pick them up and then smoke and run away before they die and lose you the points. So next on my list that I feel is absolutely mandatory are all 4 Rangers Raws. There is nothing, I think, more overpowered in this game than this Ranger Raw with the Maws. 600 pen, although it might not seem like a lot, especially if you're going up against a T-14 or a Terminator or a T-15. The fact that they have 3 rocket launchers is pretty great. Now, the only drawback, and basically the main drawback with Spec Ops as a whole, is that they have a very small health pool because they only have 6 models. The problem is, as these models die, they lose damage, and if they lose one of their rocket launchers, you're now severely hampered. So, for more than obvious reasons, I like to keep these guys behind whatever other infantry I have and only expose them to attacks or flanks when absolutely needed, and I make sure that the enemy is going to be within range. One of the things too is if you want to ever test the range, how far away you are. I know Broken Arrow doesn't have a intuitive rangefinder, but you can hit G, which G is the hotkey to attack round. And if you hit G and move your mouse, it'll actually pop up with a rangefinder that shows you range from the unit that you have to wherever your mouse pointer is. Alright, so next absolutely necessary unit for the deck is the Ranger Stingers with the Stinger anti-air missile. These guys are an amazing fire support team. they have 2 machine guns at 800 meters and a Stinger. So these guys aren't just a Stinger team. They are a fire support team that layers behind the rest of your infantry. So as you can see, front line, mid, with them in mid, and then back, right, just behind them. And next but not least are the Marines. So this AT4, I keep saying it, at only 450 pen, I honestly just don't need it. The rest of my units have plenty of AT. What I do need these guys to do, and where I do really value them as a unit, is in a damage soaking role. So like I said, these guys, very high damage. I don't want any of their models to drop. Same with these guys, and especially with these. So my goal when I'm playing this is I want to have reserve Marines kind of spread in a fan in the very front line, that they're the first ones that are going to get hit when an engagement happens, and then these guys can do the damage behind them. They are the conscript fodder package of the team. Now, one of the things I noticed quite quickly after this deck really rolled underway was that it's hard for me to hold ground with this deck. So I did end up bringing Cat Toad 2As. Now, I'm not exactly sold on the value of the overfly attack. Either one of these can get intercepted by APS. You can check that by looking at the launcher. And if this is destroyed by APS, well then you know, okay, so this thing can't be intercepted. So this TOA has a faster reload time. Chances are it might actually get through that APS. Oh wait, no, I was looking at the wrong stat, my bad. Same reload time, take that back. So ultimately, I like my infantry units to be as cheap as I can possibly make them, because infantry do die quite a lot. I'd much rather lose a 130 point team versus a 100, and I'd much rather lose a 110 point team versus a much more expensive 140 point team. So now my last unit to kind of round everything out are the Assaultmen SMAs. These guys, I just love how versatile they are. Sure, the M16 isn't the greatest thing in the world, but this SMA rocket launcher has an HE and an AT kit. And here we go, the magic number 600 pen, just like the MAs. So I do bring, I think I can bring 2. Yeah, I bring 2 of them. This is a strong part of my kit, and it's essentially what I prioritize this whole deck around. We'll get to the rest later. So this is my core of my deck. Vehicle tab, you don't have a lot of options here, and your M1A1 FEP is a very key component of your deck. I need to make this thing as tanky and as punishing as possible, because this is the only backbone that your push is going to have. Now I could bring 2 more HCs, right, and I wouldn't be able to put any armor on them. I can't even bring 2 because that puts me literally just 10 over. So I could bring 1 more of these HCs and give them the Tusk and the Jammer, and then cool, now I have 3 tanks. But what I found out is that actually having these Lavats in the back is much more valuable to this army comp, because now you're basically getting another set of toes, essentially, right? And they're very fast. You know, you can move them around pretty quickly, and they have the benefit of coming with a again, an HE rocket. So you can use this HE rocket against infantry and buildings, and I just like having this again as a defensive line type of unit. And I usually bring 4 of them. I usually always want to get 2 of these out before I'm going to push, and I try to get all 4 of these out to, again, create a defensive line. Support in this deck definitely is the weakest part of it. The only support units you have are the ones that come from USMC, so I like to bring 3 Lavads. I don't necessarily think that the Lavad is a, must-have. But it is nice to have in the, if my stingers are getting compromised, my tactics teams or my stingers, they're either running out of ammo. This is really nice to have as a backup plan because you have such a large amount of rockets that you are pretty safe to hold the line while your, troops either are rearming or in that push. Very nice choice. So my supply truck is the LVSR. I think arguably this is one of the best supply trucks in the game. The nice thing about it is at 12 health, you can carry 15,000 supplies, and it goes at 100 speed, which is one of the fastest in the game. So, and it's very cheap for what it's doing. I definitely like this a lot. I bring 2 of them, and then I bring a couple of these Lav-Ls, or I think I bring 1 Lav-L, because it's another supply, and what I can do is if I bring a big supply dump with the LVSR, I don't want to be moving, 10,000 supplies up to a dangerous point. I'm going to pack this with supplies, and chances are the enemy, when they see this, might think it's a Lav. They might not know it's a supply truck. When they see this, they'll definitely know it's a supply truck. So if it gets spotted, you're all of a sudden a high-value target. If they see this, you're probably safe, and you can just bring those 2,500 supplies up to a specific point and then back away. Now, the next point in this deck that I think is pretty important is this Miklik. I did try the mortars, and I have a video where I use these for smoke, and I can fit one. Typically want 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the Lav-Ads out, and I'm going to add an extra mortar. Now, and I can get 3 even better. Okay, so what this is going to do for me is allowing me to have 3 mortars means that I can create smoke runs, and I have a clip for that too, where essentially I set up a line of smoke that my units can run through when there's an open field. Right, you're very vulnerable with an infantry assault type of deck running through an open field. I mean, even if you have tanks and ATGMs as a backup on a hill or on a ridge, you still don't want to be shot out in the open. So setting up a path of smoke for your units to run through is a very good idea to give you cover. Now, I will say, if you do this too often and you're playing against a competent opponent, he might realize what you're doing when the smoke trail starts going and just either call in an arty barrage in your smoke line or a bombing run in your smoke line, and that can, as you can imagine, wipe you out before you get there. So once you've done 1 or 2 of these and you assume, hey, my opponent's probably going to know when I do the 3rd one, this is what I'm doing, you might want to do a fake out and do a smoke run one way and then do a smoke run another way and run through the second one. Again, the smoke in this deck and the ability to have some kind of mortar across the Miklik and this is very powerful. Oh my gosh, it's not upgraded to the Cat Fade. Okay, so the Miklik having 2 or 3 bombs versus the Cat Fade being 21, I'm going to leave that up to you. Personally, I do like the Cat Phase. So let's see if I can take one out. All right, let's leave it at that, because this way you have a very heavy artillery type. I mean, it's close range, heavy artillery, but this allows you to really soften up an objective before you push into it, right? So now let's look at the other spicy part of this deck, the helicopters and the air. Now, this is both a blessing and a curse. When you have a heavy helicopter tab and a heavy air tab, this really allows you to play the entire map. Think of yourself as, I'm Johnny on the spot. If my guy on the left flank, in the center, or on the right needs quick response, heavy damage, you're their guy. That's why I'm saying the air deck or air person, whatever, they're really the core of your team's damage and defense for these large pushes that you guys have probably seen, where there's like 25 tanks rolling down the street. You're like, oh my god, what am I going to do? Well, your air guy's probably got an answer for that. And that's how you have to think. Now, the curse part of this is, if you end up playing this deck like a ground frontline deck, well, you're going to be using this as a majority of your composition. Because let me tell you, and I ran into this when I was doing my gameplay, is that if you rely too heavily on infantry, well, infantry are slow. So your guy that your lane opponent is going to say, okay, this guy is spamming high damage close range infantry. He's going to call in like 3 Iron Thunders or the Flame Grad, and he's just going to roast you to the Stone Age. So, okay, then obviously you need to bring in your helicopters. Well, then if you're now all of a sudden, hey, I am heavy infantry, I am heavy helicopter, well, now he's just going to add some SHORAD to that and shut you down. So that's why ultimately I came to the conclusion, do not play this as a frontline deck. Play this as a air deck and share that ground roll to, again, have a heavy push through an urban town environment or a forest. And then, again, use your helicopters and your jets as a response to the enemy's aggression, right? Or, you know, use it as a scalpel to make a deep cut on the enemy's line. So let's start out with, again, my core units that I really like, and I'm going to explain why. So I really like the Guardian. Why? Okay, it has 20 armor, which is the most of the U.S. helicopters. It has 15 health, and it has, hold on, 25 ECM. So this is very strong. This means that you rarely ever just get evaporated. I mean, the only times that you get really just blown to smithereens if you have a Guardian is if you just wandered into a place where you didn't realize the volume of SHORAD that they had and just ate like 5 missiles, which made you seem like you instantly died. So going back to the quick response, these are not scout helicopters. You should know exactly the environment that you're going into when you're sending one of these helicopters in. Remember, it's 290 points. You know, you do like this pilot. You want to see him go home to his kids one day. So value how expensive these are. Try to keep them alive. And honestly, if you don't need it, sell it. This is not a unit you want just sitting there hanging around. I really don't think for any helicopter you want them just sitting on the field. Infantry are different, and again, that's why I like them as cheap as possible, because they are going to sit on the field wherever you put them. Right, of course, you can come bring in an Osprey, pick them up, and take them back, but trust me, that's a lot of micro, and you're, you know, getting a little bit of a refund. Save points where you can with things like the helicopters that if you send them back, you know, at full health, their cooldown isn't that long. You can get them back out relatively quickly when you need them. So definitely 2 Guardians. Now let's look at Killer Eggs. So the Killer Egg is one of the best lightweight helicopters in the game, and I think it's because of how versatile it is. It fits into almost any pairing that you put with it, and personally for this deck, I think the best usage for it is as a helicopter to helicopter, like, that sounds really weird, a helicopter to helicopter. No, an anti-helicopter helicopter. That still sounds weird. Sorry. Okay. Stinger AA. Just put Stinger missiles on it. Alright, so the reason why I like this is because even with 4 Stingers, this thing only costs 65. And in the helicopter game, most helicopters, as you can see here, they cost 150 almost at a minimum, and they go all the way up to 350. I know some of the alligators or Katrans on the Russian side can cost upwards of 300 to 350 points. So this thing is always going to punch up. And on the lucky occasion that this thing shoots at a jet flying above it and shoots one of them down, big score. But let's not deny how amazing these GAU 50s are. Now the reason why the GAU 50 is so nice is because, sure, it has a big volume of fire, you know, it's 800 meter range, it does 20 pen, which pen's just about any light vehicle. Now this thing is only 35. you can bring all 4 of these out as a wolf pack and do an immense amount of damage. And guess what? This thing shreds other helicopters too. I have footage of flying 4 of these right at a bunch of helicopters and just eviscerating them out of the sky. So, personally, I like the Stinger AA missiles for this composition because they can fly in off the map if they're doing some enemies doing a huge helo push. I just call all 4 of these out. They're very fast. They show up, they launch all their rockets, hopefully get a bunch of kills, and then I sell them. Again, up to you. But personally, I'm going to put these in the Stinger missiles because that's where I found them to be the most cost-effective and useful tool in this kit. So, now I have air-to-ground covered with the Guardian. Now, okay, so one thing. The reason why I don't bring an extra 8 of these fire and forget missiles is because now this thing costs like 380 points, and personally, that's a lot. So I try to keep the cost down, bring 2, and then just reload them. And, you know, you can always turn these off if you don't want them shooting at a tank. You know, you can just turn them off, only be shooting these, and then turn these back on when you want to fire at infantry. So, anyway, that's that one. So we have air-to-ground, we have air-to-chopper, we have an anti-chopper. So now we need to look at more of a support all of this type of chopper, and that's where I think the Comanche really fills that niche, right? So again, we can make this the Stinger, and this is originally how I built the Comanche, and actually that was in one of the videos, and one of the first matches I had. We said, wow, this thing's amazingly overpowered. I can have 8 Stinger missiles with, you know, 4 racks, and then I can, you know, put some Hydra rockets on it just to keep the price down. The problem with this is you got to look at what is this Comanche doing, right? It's 12 health, 10 armor, 10 ECM. So that's far less than this, 20 armor, 15 health, 25 ECM. And if this thing is primarily going to be hunting other choppers with this loadout, well, it's a 220 point chopper. And even if we take this out of it, well, it's a 180 point chopper. Now you can see the difference, right, between this being 65, which this is now 3 times the cost. And its stats are not very good. Again, 12 health, 10 armor. This thing will die in 2 rockets to anything it's facing. And with only 10% ECM, it's just not made to be in a head-to-head fight. I don't see this thing as being a head-to-head brawler. Now, how did I come to this conclusion? I learned the hard way. Again, in that video that I made, I face-to-face experienced how painful it is when you're trying to fight another chopper with this helo, and you get dumpstered, and then you like go look up, oh man, that chopper that shot me down, it must have, if this thing costs, you know, again, remember, for me it was 220. This thing costs 220 and it's a Comanche. Man, that thing must have been like 400, you know, it's so strong. Oh, it was a Kiowa Warrior that cost 90 points. Okay, never mind. Or it was, I don't know, the Mikliovilac, you know, helo on the Russian side, which was like 140 and just blew me out of the way. So yeah, I said, you know what? Okay, with all that being said, again, this deep dive, the reason why to really explain how I got to where I am. So the reason why now this is the fire support helo and this is the AA helo is because now we're playing to this thing's strengths because it has 2.5 stealth. Guys, that's pretty insanely good, right? So as we talked about, this deck has no artillery, no long-range artillery. You're leaning on the fact that you have stealth and mobility. So what does 2.5 stealth and 300 speed allow us to do with this Comanche? And now we also have 42 Hydra rockets. Well, now we can sneak around the back line and go hunt down their artillery and their SAM sites in their way in the back vulnerable positions, and we won't be seen while we get there. Now, as you can see, this thing costs 140. A SAM site or an artillery piece on the Russian side, they're minimum 200, right? 200 to 250. So if you sneak 1 or 2 of these back behind the line, and you wipe out their arty and their SAM sites, first of all, you're going to take a lot of pressure off of your frontline players, and then second of all, you're always going to trade up when you kill. Again, you need to get at least one kill, but at 140, this thing, you're not falling under a huge burden by running this around the map and doing a one-way dive into the enemy line. So I love this for that role. I think it does a great job. You can add the sensors for 20 more. It does give it that 2400 sight range versus the 200. I'll leave that one up to you on testing it out and seeing how much you like it. Okay, so this is the main setup. These are my main helicopters. Something I have been playing around with is the Super Cobra. Right, I bring 3 of these and I put these sidearms on. Now, what is the sidearm, you might say? So the sidearm is a seed missile on a helicopter. Now that should raise your ears a little bit because normally seed missiles are only on jets. So what this really now allows us to do is this allows us to bring this helicopter with the rest of our kit, and if someone's trying to YOLO push you with a radar on SHORAD piece, this thing is going to engage it and most likely knock it out. And your helicopters will be able to escape. Because even if you don't kill it, it's now going to have to target the missiles flying at it from this, and that should buy you enough time to retreat with your very expensive Guardian or your wolf pack of killer eggs. So I love having this in there as just a backup plan for my Guardians. It's up to you whether you want to spend the 20 points to put the extra Hydra rockets on it. I generally don't, but again, I'm very cost efficient over here. So that's me there. Now, for the rest of this, we really need to just look at transport helos. It's no surprise, I definitely love a good transport helo. Actually, hold that thought. One last component to the helicopter fleet is the DAB. Now, the reason why I like the DAB, and I didn't fall in love with it right away, but I came to like, was, again, purely its stats. You have 25 ECM, 10 armor, 12 health. It kind of does what I wanted the Comanche to do, which is be like a frontline brawler, but it does it much better with the 25 ECM and, same health pool and armor, but that 25 ECM makes a lot. And the goal really being keep the Guardians alive. At 150, you can lose 2 of these, and, at that point, yeah, you've bitten the cost of a Guardian, but you would rather keep these alive and send them back than lose the DAPs instead if something is gonna die. So again, a lot of helicopters, but this is a lot of tool in your toolkit to again cover the map and defend and support your team. So now transport helos, Osprey. I love this. Every chance I get to bring an Osprey, I bring it because of the fact that I think I'm gonna have to take one out. Because of the fact that it is so quick, you can get a decent amount of supplies and 28 guys to the front line in a blink, and then send this thing back at almost no cost to you. You just lose 10% of whatever a unit costs when you sell it. So, this thing's in and out super quick. And then the next one, if I want to send enemy units or supplies close to the front line, and I want to make sure that they don't die, I get the SOAR. Now the SOAR, yeah, I can only bring one. So the SOAR, again, let's look at the Guardian, right? 20 armor, 15 health, 25 ECM. The SOAR has 20 armor, 18 health, more than the Guardian, and 15 ECM. If you want to be a mad lad, you can spend 25 more points, and now it also has 25 ECM. And this thing, again, can hold 12,500 of supplies or 32 troops. Not too unlike what the King Stallion can do, but the King Stallion not made of the same, not cut from the same cloth. The SOAR is, again, one of those very powerful units that only the Spec Ops guys get. So I love this because of how impactful it can be at a critical moment where I'm like, well, I don't want to fly my Osprey in because it will get shot down, but I can bring the soar in pretty close and drop stuff off and not worry about just instantly getting blown up. It takes like 3 strafing runs for a jet to shoot this thing down too, so this thing isn't going to die quickly from a jet, and you can probably call one in to back it up, right, if it is getting attacked. So I love this thing. I personally don't put the extra ECM on it, but you totally can, and I encourage you to try it out, see if you like it. All right, so this now leaves us with the air tab, the very delicious air tab. I'm gonna start with this. So I have a friend that I love playing video games with, and we both, when we saw that this was in the game, we had like a gamer moment, where we were just absolutely just ecstatic that we were going to be able to fly the AC-130 and make some cool moments with this. Unfortunately, we have not been able to get it to work. Now, that doesn't mean it's not good. That doesn't mean you can't make it work. We just haven't. So again, as a deep dive, I tried this, I tested it. I could not make it work the way I like to see it handle, which is basically like, you clear the AA, you clear the, long-range SAMs, the SHORAD, and you basically open a space for this thing to just come in and fly around and just nuke someone's front line. I haven't been able to get it to work. I have heard some use cases of people saying it's a great backline scout, that you can have it fly around in your backline to look for recon running around, in your back area. But I haven't tried it for that. So let me show you what my main jets are for this deck, and I'll tell you why. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying any of these other ones are bad. Quite contrary, you have one of the most flexible decks in the game as far as an air tab goes, and I'll scale these back to show how I would build these out. But I'm going to tell you why I love the F-35A. So the F-35A, similar to the F-35B, but it can carry the 2,000-pound bomb. And that's unique to this one versus the F-35B. So the F-35A can carry 2,000-pound bombs, and it comes stock with AMRAAMs. So the fact that this thing has stealth on top of that means that you can fly in to do a precision strike, and if you micro the plane well on its way out, you can dodge or evade most missiles that are shot at you, and you're not seen on the way in. The only way you're spotted on the way to your target is if they have a recon unit under your plane spawn that's seeing you as you fly overhead, or they have a plane in the sky that's going to spot you before you get there. If this thing gets spotted before it gets to its target, it's most likely dead. But if you can take advantage of the stealth and only be spotted once you've dropped your bombs, you're most likely going to get good value. And again, the fact that this is the 2,000-pound pair of bombs, you can destroy heavy tanks, infantry. I mean, just anything gets absolutely flattened by these bombs. And I really loved it. So I bring all 4, but for the sake of the deep dive, I'll just, carry... actually, I'll bring all 4 because you can add more. But this is my point allocation for that bomber because I love how useful and versatile it is. Now, the F-35B, I do bring this one, and what I put in this one is the JSOW. Now, the JSOW is a funny thing because it's a cluster bomb, and it does 7 damage. So, hitting the top armor, 400 pin on the top armor is most likely going to pin any heavy tank that it hits. And the fact that it's doing 7 damage means you're going to do 14 damage. You'll do the full damage on a vehicle, but it's not going to blow up a heavy tank. Most heavy tanks have 17, 18, 19 health. So you're in fact going to cripple it. You're going to critical a bunch of the systems, maybe disable it, track it, whatever. But the area of these bombs is so wide that if someone's doing just a YOLO tank blob push, it's much better to call in an F-35B or both of them instead of an F-35A. The 2,000-pound bombs aren't going to do an enormous amount of damage to a blob of tanks. F-35A will do an enormous amount of damage to one or two tanks. The F-35B does a moderate amount of damage to all of the tanks in a blob type of composition. So this is, there's infantry in buildings. There's, a bunch of artillery that I spotted. There's a bunch of AA that I spotted. I'm going to go bomb those. Guaranteed kills. This is, oh, hey, there's a blob of, T-14s or T-15s or T-90s, and I'm going to go and massively cripple that whole blob. And again, if you call them both out and you hit with all four, that's a dead blob. So, precision bombing, I really love that. Now let's take a look at the Harrier. The Harrier, I think, is kind of a unsung hero. Of course, the A-10 kind of does everything this does a little better. Because the Harrier 2 Plus is designed as a Maverick launcher system, and you can bring 4 Mavericks on it. You can bring air-to-air missiles in addition to kind of what it has. The fact that you can bring 2 sidearms with it allows it to, give itself a seed run as it's coming in. Do note that it gets pretty expensive. It's only $205 or $245, but having the seed as it's flying in, to defend itself on its attack run is not a bad idea. The designation pod allows you to laser designate a specific target, but I personally like just adding a little bit of extra ECM or going big cheap and just saying, hey, YOLO, good luck. If you come back, I love you. If not, I didn't want to spend 20 points for you to live. So let's throw that on there. But this is, again, it's a great kind of bargain bin anti-tank missile launch system. And it does a great job of that. Now the night attack is one of my favorites because it has the snake eye. So I'm going to kind of go through the different bombs here real quick. You have these free fall bombs, right? And then you have these snake eye high drag bombs. Now the high drag bomb allows you to drop your bombs at low altitude. That means that the long range AA in the back of the field is not going to be shooting you because those long-range AA don't target low-flying jets. All of these, this bomb, the 500-pound bombs, the 1,000-pound, they are, low-drag bombs, and they have to be dropped from a high altitude, right? Now, the firebomb is also a high-drag bomb, but again, I'll leave this to your experimentation. But I have noticed that when I drop the firebomb, it's pretty easy for units to just run out of it because it's not like the Grad, right? The Grad puts this patch of fire on the ground so big that by the time you try to run out of it, you're dead. This drops everything in a line, so you can run, to the edge of where that fire line is and escape. So typically for me, when I'm building a night attack Harrier, I have found that the snake eyes give you that immediate damage that you're looking for right away. And think about it, with this loadout, you have 14 snake eyes. Guys, that's a lot of damage. So really great if you see, infantry hiding in a forest, if you see a blob of tanks, basically anything that's in a line, you can set up a low altitude bombing run, and this is going to make you sing Sweet Christmas as it just blasts everything out of the sky. So I think I only brought one of these. Now let's look at the B2 Spirit. Me personally, I am not very good at strategically using the nuke or the mops or even these carpet bomb style payloads. And the reason why I say I'm not good is because this thing dies every time. I never get it back to base. And personally, when I'm dropping a nuke, or when I'm sending out 1,000-point plane or 1,000-point anything, if it doesn't trade up, well then why did I send it? Right? Like, why would I? What's the point of sending 1,000-point plane dropping bombs if I'm not killing at least 1,000 points worth of units? Now you could say, hey, if you drop it on an objective and blow up, let's say 1,200 points, okay, it paid for itself, and you've also now cleared the way to capture an objective and gain another point on the phase score from that. Well then, hey, well now it's worth it, even if it dies. And to you, sir, I say you're right. But personally, for me, that means now I have to make up 1,000 points somewhere else, and this is one use case, whereas I have 4 uses here and 1 here. So for me, I'm just better at making good use of the precision strike. But by no means is this bad. I have been nuked plenty of times. I have seen many of nukes go off. You can easily use this, again, in the theme and the role of the deck, as a quick response, heavy damage air deck. B2 Spirit is great. Another great way to use this, let's not forget, is the JASSM cruise missiles. Right? You can launch these at 10,000 meters all over the map. You get 16 of them, and then with that, you're most likely going to make it out. Right? This thing isn't going to die. You can shoot all the cruise missiles, and again, most likely survive. So, great option there. Anyway, I'll leave that to you guys. Just want to talk about it. Seed plane, it is absolutely clutch that you can bring a seed plane, and I personally believe if a deck can bring a seed plane, you should. Now the thing is, I usually hope the other members of my team bring seed. Why? I know it might sound super selfish, but if I'm saving up points to do a bombing run or a precision strike, I don't want to also have to save up, another 240 or 480 points to also bring in 2 or 3 prowlers, right? Usually I have just enough points to call out my F-35As and Bs, and then I hope, again, our support player or one of our other ground players, again, might have enough points that collectively across the team, when they say, hey guys, I really need a precision strike right here, I'm going to bring out seed and cover you. That's the dream scenario. And of course, on random games, it's a little harder. I would say if you're building this primarily to just play with randoms, bring 1, right, and then call it out with your F-35. So again, you give it a chance. Most of the time, though, I get my F-35s out alive. But if you feel like you want to bring this in to cover you, let's say you bring the B2 Spirit, you definitely bring the B2 Spirit and the Prowler to cover it, and have a much higher chance of this thing getting out alive. Okay. F-18C Hornet. Lovely bird. Love this thing. One of the best things about it is I kind of use it like the Raptor, that you get these gunslinger, sniper missiles, and for 340 points, I think that's very effective. I mean, this thing, it has 2 sidewinders, and with 4 gunslingers, you can be the sniper jet of your team, hang really far back, and just pick off targets that are either loitering or attacking your team. And I definitely always bring one of these. I definitely always bring one of these, and I'm out of points. I don't know, so I went 70 over somewhere, but you can see we're pretty close to the end. So F-18D as the end with my build. We're not done totally with the deep dive. So F-18D, this is again kind of in the same vein as the Harrier 2 Plus and the A-10 Warthog, in the fact that it's primarily designed, in my opinion, to take advantage of the Maverick missiles, right? When I look at a jet, I say, okay, what's the unique thing that this jet can do that not many other jets can do? And in this case, it's going to be this, the potential ability for it to bring 2 cruise missiles. It's going to be the fact that, it can bring fire bombs. That's not every jet can do that. So cruise missiles, fire bombs. You can even bring snake eyes. Rock Eyes, and then the Maverick. So I like the fact that if I were to use it, if I did say, you know, hey, I need a fast Maverick, I like it for that. And you know, again, it comes with two sidewinders, but you can also make it very multi-role, right? And you can have it also bring AMRAMs, so it can be shooting AMRAMs while it's doing a Maverick run. Again, if you want to make that a part of it. Nighthawk, um, to me, it doesn't really fit the theme of this deck because as a quick response air assault, you know, I've seen the most success with the Nighthawk be used because of the fact that it can, you know, either bring 2,000-pound bombs and just do a big bomb drop, or it can launch these cruise missiles from very far away and get out safely. Um, you know, having this thing fly in for a bombing run is rough because even though it has stealth, it's not fast. It can't change altitude, so it can't drop down low, and it does not have an afterburner. Let that sink in. So it's slow, it's forced to stay at high altitude, and again, it's slow turn radius. So I like it as kind of a cruise missile, you know, pocket jet. But again, I don't have points to make it fit in this deck. Hey, you're probably wondering, oh my gosh, you didn't bring the F-22 Raptor. Well, that's because I have the Hornet. Alright, so let's do a little comparison here with this and the Hornet, and I'll, you know, maybe kind of show you why. So if I were to bring this to do what I have the Hornet doing, you know, let's look at what these two things do. Of course, health is the same, vision range is the same. This has stealth. Okay, it is faster, and it does turn a little better, right? Those are all great, and it also has 10% more ECM. That's all great. Now it is 100 points more, and I look at this. The damage for whatever reason of the JADM is less than the damage of the AIM 174. Now, does that really matter? Well, the 174, it's still not going to one-shot. You could say, well, it's still going to take 2 missiles to kill a jet because it's not going to one-shot it. So even this takes 2 missiles to one-shot a jet. What's the point? Well, the point is, if there's a near miss where like the ECM calculates a near miss where it's not getting a full hit, that partial damage can still allow you to get a 2-shot kill, whereas the partial damage at 16 means you could end up actually being in a position for a 3-shot kill. Now, it's more likely with the Raptor because you have, you know, an AMRAM in there as well that you can shoot the JADM and then you can shoot the AMRAM, so you're getting more missiles on target. But personally, I do just fine with the Hornet, but that doesn't mean you don't bring it, right? You can play around with this. I'm just telling you my personal experience is the Raptor, for its cost and for what it does. You know, I know you're basically paying that 100 points for the AMRAM and the stealth. I get it. But I've had plenty of luck with the Hornet. Again, it being cheaper means that I can more easily call it out and use it kind of when I need it. So Raptor's great. I actually think it's better as a, you know, 1,000-pound JSOW bomber. But, you know, maybe now we're getting into the weeds, and no point in that. So that's really it. The Harvest Hawk, the MC-130H, you know, these are, you know, transports with, you know, a missile system. I gotta be honest, I haven't used these at all. So that's basically it. Now, if I'm gonna take 70 points out of this deck, I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna take it out of that and that, and there you go. We're at 10,000 points, and this is the definitive deep dive of the USMC SOCOM deck. As a wrap-up, you have very good recon with your Ranger snipers, your Force recon, and the Sentinel drone. Special tactics teams do a great job of backing up your main infantry corps. Right, this is the bulk of your deck. This is where you're going to get all of your ground pressure and support your front line. These tanks and LAV ATs are going to be backing up your front line and giving you a backbone, right, as you push forward. Your light support slot is going to just give you the essential minimal amount of tools that you need to defend yourself, supply yourself, and put some longer range pressure and give you a defensive smoke option. This helicopter tab, man, bread and butter right here. Just as much as this infantry tab is your primary pushing power, this is your support the team. You have every tool, some of the best helicopters in the U.S. roster. I think the only thing that would make this better is if you could get the Kiowa Warrior in here, but that's for a different deck combination. Overall, again, love the infantry in this deck, love the helicopters, and the fact that you get both F-35s really give you the ability to strike hard, strike fast, and get out alive. I hope you guys liked this video. Let me know what you think of the deck deep dive. My goal here is to give you an idea and then allow you to kind of go from there, right? It's very easy in Broken Arrow to kind of settle into a deck that you like and then not realize that, man, there is a whole nother game here, a whole nother play style in a deck that exists right here, right? So I hope you liked it. Please let me know what you think, and I can't wait to do the next one.